So please let's remember that this is a debate and it's a discussion, and it's important for us to keep it at that level. Thank you.
Yes. Anthea Hartig.
Thank you, Jim and Dr. Ann Clark and the Commonwealth Club. Warm greetings to my fellow panelists and to our audience. Thank you for being here tonight. In a place where green space has always mattered, the Golden Gate Park stands out as a historic horticultural masterpiece. As Mr. Buell and the Recreation and Park Commission and departments deeply understand as the park's longtime stewards, it is one clearly of the city's greatest treasures. It is thus, in my opinion, worthy of all designations, protections, and careful and multi-dimensional stewardship so that it will have a meaningful and sustainable future. And by multi-dimensional, I mean the scenic, natural, cultural, environmental, and recreational elements and attributes of a resource of this magnitude and type. As you know, designed by Hall and McLaren in the 1870s, Golden Gate Park boasts an incredible array of historic buildings, sculptures, monument, and landscape features. Our generations, collectively, although it might be nice to see slightly younger generations in the crowd, but hopefully they're online live streaming us right now. We've inherited a Golden Gate Park as one of the most important design cultural landscapes in the nation, if not the world. And a design landscape is defined by the National Park Service as a cultural landscape that was consciously designed or laid out by a landscape architect, master gardener, architect, or horticulturalist according to design principles, end quote. As such, the entirety of the GGP was listed proudly on the National Register of Historic Places in 2004, joining important cultural landscapes like this one that are designated as National Historic Landmarks, which is the highest designation in the empire, local historic districts, and local individual landmarks all across the country. Most of the parks that we think of as historic around the nation, Griffith Park in Los Angeles being the newest, to Fairmount Park in Philadelphia, 9,220 acres with 63 pocket parks, to the Japanese tea gardens in Seattle, to the Boston Commons. In fact, any of Boston's parks, if you're familiar with that incredible city, that you might think about or recognize are designated as historic. All of these are local landmarks overseen by some combination of Historic Preservation and Park and Recreation Commission. A little closer to home, Phoenix has 30 parks listed as local landmarks and are subject to design review. Of course, the National Historic Landmark Central Park in Manhattan, which many see as both either a bane of park existence or a model of public-private partnerships, is also a National Historic Landmark and is co-managed, of course, by the Central Park Conservancy, but as well as the New York City's Department of Park and Rec, and has oversight of the National Park Service itself because of its National Historic Landmark designation. Preservation advocacy, I bring this up for Jim and Spur, and thanks to Kathy for finding it for me. Preservation advocacy in San Francisco has long been a critical voice in the city's evolution, whether it be vocalizing concerns against planned freeways, ta-da, 1948, decimation of neighborhoods, or the changes in the financial districts. Some of its parks, like Alamo Square and Washington Square Park, have already received local designation. And the fears of fossilization or amberization, which I don't think is a word, but you know what I mean, in my opinion, coming from both local government and state government and now working for the National Trust, seem far-fetched, almost as far-fetched as saying that somehow Golden Gate Park is not historic. I find it fascinating that if a botanist says, that's an oak tree, we say, oh, right, that's an oak tree. If historians, not in defending my ilk, I know. If historians say, hey, that's a historic place, you're like, oh, really? Are you sure? Yes, yes, we're sure. And in fact, in this case, as one of my dear colleagues pointed out, historians and landscape architects could help discern the cultural significance of said oak tree, in my example. So I'd like us to think about collectively local designation with well-detailed accompanying design guidelines that ideally can streamline and manage change in Golden Gate Park, and think about the cross-pollination or pollination of specializations on each of the Historic Preservation Commission as well as the Rec and Park Commission, and think about kind of a world where perhaps we can check hyperbole and ego at the door so we could have enhanced decision-making. The Golden Gate Park Master Plan seems to provide an excellent framework. Was incredibly done and well hammered out as it delineates both an easterly and westerly zones of the park. So in closing, I think I have 1 more minute left. Brief thoughts on how to manage in my mind, which has become a heated issue. First, strive for balance. Secondly, base our conversations on facts. 3, amass best practices and ideas from around the nation, state, nation, and globe. And so ideally, that we can arrive at a place of collaborative management, both in philosophy and set of practices that can enact the Park Master Plan, use the expertise of groups like the New Historic Preservation Commission, the Audubon, San Francisco Architectural Heritage, the National Trust, advocates like the GGPPA, Cultural Landscape Foundation, et al., and all the incredible people who care deeply about Golden Gate Park. And I thank you for allowing me to be here.
Hi, I'm Kathy Howard, and I'd like to build on what Dr. Hartig said. A couple of projects are on the drawing board right now that will have negative impacts on the more wild and forested end of Golden Gate Park. Just across the highway from, Great Highway from Ocean Beach and screened by trees lie the Beach Chalet soccer fields. Can we go back maybe to the map just for a minute? You can see the map. The red is the Beach Chalet, and then below it is the water treatment plant. Those are the 2 projects I'm going to be talking about. And we can go into the meadow. The Beach Chalet soccer fields are right across the highway from the ocean. They are screened by trees. They are in a meadow surrounded by groves of trees and inhabited by wildlife. The playing fields do need maintenance. The golfers are having a field day, if you'll excuse the pun. And we know that it needs maintenance, but it's beautiful parkland, and it's a really great place. You have beautiful trees, you have birds singing, and you can hear the ocean a few hundred yards away. The Beach Chalet construction project will change these fields forever into a hard-edged urban sports complex. It will rip out over 7 acres of topsoil and living natural grass and replace it with artificial turf. Artificial turf is made of about a 6-inch base of gravel on which you put a plastic carpet, and then you fill it with old ground-up tire waste. There will be lots of new concrete and asphalt, an expanded parking lot, seating for 1,000, and other built elements. We're going to lose about 55 trees for sure, and probably more, because I can tell you as a landscape architect that when you get into construction, that's what happens. To cap it all off, there will be 10 sets of 60-foot-tall multi-fixture sports lights. The lights will be twice as high as the trees that screen the fields from the Great Highway. So we're going to have these intense stadium lights shining down with 250,000 watts from sunset till 10 o'clock p.m. every night of the year. So you go down to Ocean Beach with your significant other, maybe you stroll on the beach, maybe you want to be by a fire ring, maybe you want to gaze up at the stars, and all of a sudden, wham, the lights go on. It'll be like the mothership landing. A little south of the fields is neglected parkland currently used for construction storage. It's got stuff like piles of gravel and dirt. A second project is proposed for here, the water cycling plant. This will be a 40,000 square foot facility with a chemical building, 30-foot tall blank concrete walls, 24-hour lighting, and security gating. Over 200 more trees will be either cut down or threatened. This is very simple. This is an industrial building. It should not be in Golden Gate Park. We've identified alternative locations outside of the park, and we asked the PUC to encourage them to consider these locations during the EIR process. As for the soccer fields, we support youth soccer. We think it would be really great if kids could play on a quality, real grass soccer field. We think the fields should be renovated with real grass using modern construction methods, better drainage, good sod, and some kind of gopher controls. Yes, there will be more maintenance, but Rec and Park is pursuing endowments. Let's use one for a groundscaper for all of Golden Gate Park's playing fields. We think the kids are worth having that experience of playing on a natural grass field. And let's have a broader vision for this whole part of Golden Gate Park. How about new meadows? Have you ever tried to get a picnic table on a holiday weekend? How about an additional grass practice area for the soccer players? How about a native plant reserve or wildlife habitat? A few years ago, I visited a bulb garden, the Hortus bulborum, near Amsterdam. It preserves the old DNA stock for the original bulbs that were brought from the Middle East hundreds of years ago. So how does it do this? It grows them. The factory is right next to the Murphy windmill, which is being restored in the millwright's house. They are going to put a restaurant in the millwright's house. Would you rather eat lunch next to a factory, a chemical building, and a bunch of plastic, grass, and tire waste? Or would you rather do it overlooking a bulb garden? Tough choice. But seriously, Golden Gate Park is a gift from past generations to us today. Let's find ways to enhance it rather than to destroy the heritage we are leaving for future generations. Thank you.
I'm going to have to make another request because we are really on a very tight time schedule that you hold your applause until the end of the presentations. Remember, we want enough time to have your questions so that you can find answers or hear answers from the panel. So the two rules now are no outlandish noises and hisses and things like that. That's rude. And two, please just hold your applause so that we will have the time to really fully explore these issues.